Well, Bahrain was the first country in the GCC where oil was discovered in 1932. And oil since then have played a major role in the economy. The political leadership have used the wealth generated by the oil discovery wisely to build the infrastructure in Bahrain, to provide the services for the citizens of Bahrain, like schools, housing, roads, hospitals, everything else. And Bahrain, although the production of crude and the reserves are not very high compared with our neighbors, because the way the money, the wealth generated by the oil and gas sector has been distributed, it ranks equally in the modernization process as any of the other Gulf states. In actual fact, in terms of human resources, Bahrain ranks #1 in the GCC and in the Arab world in total. So Bahrain has used the wealth generated by the oil very wisely. Today, the revenue from oil and gas sector contributes about 80% of the government revenues. However, although Bahrain was the first country to discover oil, Bahrain was also the first country in the GCC to diversify, depending solely on revenue from oil. So in the late 60s, early 70s, the government embarked on a diversification policy, which now showing very good results, because when we look at the contribution of oil and gas to the GDP, the gross domestic product, that's not only the government revenue, that is the government and the private sector. It only constitutes, oil and gas sector, 24% of the GDP at current prices. And if we go at constant prices, then it's only about 12%. So it means the government has been very successful in the diversification on solely depending on revenue from oil. Now, the other sectors which now have gained momentum is like the financial sector in Bahrain. Bahrain is a well-known financial sector because it applies the rules of law, and there is legislation, and there are many regulations which protect the investors and the bankers and whoever wants to use the financial services. Also, Bahrain has got one of the largest aluminium smelters in the world, and this was also part of this diversification policy. So Bahrain has managed to balance both the diversification process plus also generating more revenue from oil. It doesn't mean that if you do one, you shouldn't do the other one. So, for example, we are currently now in Bahrain developing our old Bahrain field, which is more than 78, 79 years old, by using new enhanced oil recovery techniques. And for this, we have asked bids from international oil companies, and Occidental of the USA and Mubadala of UAE have won the bid. And we have formed a new company called Tatweer Company, which started operations 1st of December 2009. And already they are making good progress. I'm also chairman of Tatweer Petroleum Company. Now, Tatweer Petroleum Company, the aim of the company is to invest $15 billion over the next 20 years to enhance the oil recovery from the Bahrain field. Bahrain field, because it is very old and the only field discovered so far in Bahrain, the production from it has been declining over the years. So Tatweer has halted now, stopped the decline, and are beginning now to increase the production from the old field. So from around 29,000 barrels a day, which was then when the operations started with Tatweer, today we are at 40,000. So it means we have increased the production by 11,000 barrels a day. And in terms of price of crude today, which is over $100, it means a substantial additional revenue for the government of Bahrain. And in the next 5 to 7 years, the production from the Bahrain field will triple. So it means, and it stays that in the range of 100,000 barrels a day until 2028. So it means for the next 20 years, Bahrain is assured that it will have its own indigenous crude, not to, for it to be exhausted, but for it to be increased. So this is a major achievement, and this shows that the oil and gas sector has been rejuvenated in the last 5 years, because His Majesty the King and His Royal Highness the Prime Minister and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince have restructured the oil and gas industry. So they formed the National Oil and Gas Authority in September 2005, and I was honored to be the chairman appointed by them. And since then, we have done this tatweer, which is increase in the Bahrain field production. We have offered all our offshore blocks in our territorial waters to international oil companies. And already these 4 offshore blocks are being worked on by Occidental Petroleum of the USA and PTT of Thailand. And they have done geophysical studies, and they have done surveys, seismic surveys, and they will be drilling for new exploration wells for possibility of new discoveries. So that's another major drive and achievement in Bahrain. In addition to that, perhaps your audience have seen that we have signed recently a deep gas agreement with Occidental. It means that we engaged a consultant to see whether we have any reserves, gas reserves, in the field of Bahrain, which has not been discovered before. And our consultants say you have a good quantity, but you have to drill deeper. So we've submitted this to international oil companies to bid, and again Occidental have won it, and we have signed an agreement with them. And this agreement, of course, will go through Parliament for ratification, and then they can start. The exploration period for this is 7 years, but the keenness of the international oil companies to bid shows that they have some expectation for a good hope of reserves. Also, we are now analyzing the bids for the liquefied natural gas, which we had 21 companies interested. We shortlisted them to 14, and we have received bids from 9 of them, and we are currently analyzing these bids and evaluating them. And this involves basically installation of a LNG receiving facility in Bahrain and the supply of gas, and it will help us to supplement the gas that we have in Bahrain, and also as a backup in case we need to import gas. All these projects taken together shows that there is a large amount of investment which is going to be invested in the next 5 to 10 years in Bahrain. In addition to this, we have the refinery master plan, which is about $6 billion, which will involve expanding the capacity of the refinery, because our refinery capacity currently is around 260,000 barrels a day. But with the increase in the Bahrain crude production from where it was to 100,000, it means we have additional crude, indigenous crude. We are also replacing a pipeline which is extended between Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. It's called AB pipeline. It was constructed in 1945. and it brings, we buy from Saudi Arabia through this pipeline 230,000 barrels a day of crude, which goes with our indigenous Bahrain crude into the refinery as a commingled crude to produce finished products. Now we are rerouting the pipeline and replacing it and increasing its capacity from 230,000 to around 350,000. So it means we have an additional crude there as well. So if we take that additional crude plus the Bahrain indigenous crude increase, we will have the ability to expand the capacity of the refinery. And that is what the refinery master plan is about, expanding the capacity and improving the quality of the products and making the refinery competitive in the future, regardless of what happens in the international market. So all these projects, when you add them, they amount to billions of dollars. And these large investments means that basically the 15 billion that will be spent by the international oil companies, it is an investment for Bahrain field development. It's not done by the government, it's done by the international oil companies. And this means under the agreement which we signed with them also, we were careful to put clauses that they should train and develop Bahrainis, they should give priority to Bahrainis in employment, they should transfer technology, they should really, wherever possible and practicable, they should buy their needs for materials from local merchants, they should engage local contractors and services, and also they should protect the environment. So all this taken together, it means there are lots of money coming into Bahrain by international oil companies, and this will move the economy and generate work, job opportunities. It also revitalizes the oil and gas sector.